Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the OT podcast. I am really excited about today's episode because we're discussing something that is so incredibly important in OT, which is the caregiver experience. I'm here today with Fiona Bell, who has been caring for her husband, Ron Bell. Ron is a 62-year-old man who suffered a thrombotic ischemic CVA in the medulla oblongata, secondary to hypertension. He suffered a TIA a week before his CVA, and he was referred from an acute care hospital to inpatient rehab to receive OT, PT, and SLP services. In inpatient rehab, he is working on some lingering symptoms from his stroke, which is ataxia, dysphagia, facial weakness, loss of sensation on the left side of his body, vision issues, specifically dry eye, and ADL assistance in bathing, dressing, toileting, and mobility. He has been home for about 2 weeks at the start of this interview. He lives on the second floor of a 3-story home, and the adaptive equipment in the home consists of a commode, a shower chair, and Ron is currently using a cane. So before we jump in, I wanted to share that Fiona completed the PA Care Kit Understanding Your Needs quiz, which showed moderate caregiver burden. And she also completed the Benjamin Rose Caregiver Strain Instrument, where she scored a 4 in mastery, 4 in relationship strain, 7 in health strain, and 8 in social isolation/activity restriction. And as you can see, her assessment results are being shown in the video version of this podcast, so you can pause the video to see the assessments and her results. And these assessments and results are going to give us a little background for our talk today. Let's meet Fiona. Hi, Fiona. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. So before we begin the interview, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here and talking with me today. I know sharing personal stories can be a lot, so I really appreciate your openness.
No problem.
So, Fiona, could you start by telling me a little bit about yourself and how you see your role as a caregiver?
Sure. I am 55 and a wife, and I am a mom of 3 kids, and my husband has recently had a stroke, so I am in the role of caregiver for him.
Thank you for sharing that. So it sounds like you stepped into a really big role. What has been the biggest shift for you personally?
I think probably one of the larger things is just the change in our lifestyle. We both have, as I mentioned, kids and very busy lives, and both of us work full time, and a lot of that has had to be put on hold while we readjust to the new norm that we have right now.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. That gives us a really good foundation for the rest of our interview. So now I'd love to understand more about what your day-to-day life looks like.
So right now a lot of it is making sure that my husband Ron is safe. He's still not fully steady on his feet, making sure that his needs are met from a medication perspective, from a just being able to groom and toileting and meals and all of that type of thing, transportation, to all the services he's still receiving at the now as an outpatient to the rehab facility. So he's still getting occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech. He meets with a general physician on a regular basis, and this is a good 35-45 minutes from our house, depending on traffic. So a lot of it is making sure that he has enough time to get into the car and get to all the appointments. Some of them are spaced out, so it does take up a big portion of the day.
Wow, so it sounds like you're doing a lot. That's a lot. So your care kit results show you help with meal prep, meds, bathing, transfers, toileting. So, most of Ron's activities of daily living, which parts feel the most demanding?
I think him not being mobile, as I mentioned, we have multiple children, and him not being able to drive or really help out with any of those activities. He's limited on anything with computer screens or that type of thing. So all of our personal type finances or just managing our day to day is falls on me right now. So that adds a lot to my plate.
What would you say helps you stay grounded during all of this?
I think a lot of it probably humor. We have a lot of very good friends and family that check in on us. And I would say, just making sure that we're checking in on each other. And I think just trying to figure out what the next steps are and planning. I think that helps me stay focused, is just that there is a plan. I think one of the areas that's always hardest, no matter what is going on, is the uncertainty and not having a plan. And right now we have a very clear plan and line of sight of what needs to be done.
That's really great insight. So, since you're juggling all these tasks, I just want to shift a bit and talk about support and resources. So, the PA Care Kit has lots of caregiving and self-care resources. What makes a resource feel helpful for you? Is it something simple or something more hands-on?
I think it depends on the task. I feel like between the kit and we did get a lot of good insights, good coaching, takeaways from the physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurses at the rehab center. I think they were extremely helpful. Also, a kit that's relative to our situation, our home layout. I think the more day-to-day and real it can be, the more valuable it's been for us.
That's really great insight. Knowing yourself and what works best for you is a very valuable skill to have as a caregiver. So now I'd like to shift a little and talk about what it was like learning all the caregiving skills you use now. So when you first started helping Ron with mobility and daily routines, how did you learn those skills? Did the hospital or rehab team explain things clearly?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a process of information we've gathered from multiple resources, whether it was the nurses in the hospital, the OTs, the PTs, the physicians, just knowing our own schedule and varying needs. I think that we've learned different things along the way. Also, just starting from where Ron was with his progression, his needs have changed, so therefore the skills that I need to have also changed. It was a lot easier in the rehab center because you knew he was safe, you knew there were alarms or things that would go off if he fell, or things that would be helpful in the home. We've just had to readjust on that. Make sure also physically, for instance, one of the first nights Ron took an actual warm shower was when he realized he had lost all temperature on the one side of his body. So when we were in the rehab center, you were getting lukewarm at best showers. So some of those things didn't come into play or into our understanding until later. So had some calls with the neurologist. There's also when you're in the hospital, you're hooked up to every machine, so you know all your vitals, everything. When you get home, you've lost some of those key supports. So sometimes nighttime is a tougher time because you're just a little concerned at what's going on. Are they okay? Or could they have another stroke or another relapse? So just building more confidence and seeing the progress is helpful with that confidence. Before Ron had a stroke, I would have said the thing we were most fearful of is one of us actually dying, and now we do think more about being incapacitated because it completely changes your lifestyle. In the middle of this, we had been doing a renovation to our house, and we had no plans for a solid path in the back of the house. But once there was a potential that Ron might have a walker or need access to the house, we changed that to a full path. So those little things we would not have had to think through before strategically how to get him in and out of the house.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of factors have been playing into your quote-unquote new life. And you mentioned confidence. What do you feel you've gotten more confident with over time?
I think knowing what resources are more available, or who to go to for what resources, or just my own abilities and understanding what's happening. So I would say that's built over time.
That's great. So once you learned those skills, you also had to help Ron stay motivated with them, which is a whole different challenge, I'm sure you know. So I would like to talk about that next. So how did you help Ron stay motivated with exercise or care routines?
Well, I think some of the motivators is he was interested, number one, in getting his driver's license reinstated. Typically, one thing that we didn't know about is if you've had any type of stroke or neurological incident, until you're recertified, you're not supposed to drive. And I think that's been very, very hard for him, and very hard for me, being down a driver in the house, and then also him having access to get to work. So I think both of those motivators help. So me reminding him of that and moving towards that, and also just being more aware of his overall health. I think sometimes you take those things for granted, and just realizing what do we need to do to make sure that this doesn't either happen again or it doesn't get worse.
So we're talking a lot about Ron, but what helps you stay patient on the days that feel a bit harder?
I think it's having the plan. I think it comes back to being aware of what the plan is, what the end goals are. It helps me stay focused. I have other children to focus on and a job myself, so I think not just focusing on that and having other factors that you take a minute and step away from it sometimes, and not feeling guilty about what you could do, what you should do, and is often hard, but I think it's important.
So, as I'm sure you know, caregiving affects pretty much everything: your energy, stress, happiness. So, I want to explore how all of this impacts your quality of life. So, what helps give you a sense of balance every day? Are there any little joys or moments that help you refill your cup?
I think one advantage I might have that sometimes other caregivers don't have is we have a special needs son, so I am a little bit more accustomed to having to be aware or delve into someone's needs. So I think that, people often say, I don't know how you do it. You really don't have a choice. So it's having that plan, working that plan, keeping humor front of mind, not being afraid to laugh at the situation. If, somebody's, making something a little bit more difficult, how do you keep the humor in it or lighten it? Keeping friends around, and keeping loved ones nearby so that you stay as close to your routine as possible, and Somebody once said to me, when you have situations like this, your your lows are very low, but your highs are very high. So it's making sure you celebrate those big moments, or even those little moments. That definitely is helpful.
Wow, it sounds like you're really trying your best to find a balance, like you said, even with everything going on. And that really takes a lot of strength, even if it doesn't feel like it, it does. So that leads us right into how caregiving affects relationships. So, has caring for Ron changed any of your relationships, either with Ron or with others?
Um, I would say yes, because especially when it's your partner, you both have your roles and responsibilities, and all of a sudden, once everything's on you, it kind of shifts that security, or that comfort, that fear factor. Um, I understand, especially Ron being male, oftentimes it's hard for them to be vulnerable or share those feelings of vulnerability. So you end up sometimes feeling a little bit alone or afraid by yourself, because they might not want you to see the fear, and they might not want to feel like a burden. So I do think that has an impact on the relationship, and just pure nature of people that you think would absolutely be there for you, and they're not, and people that you would never have thought of, and they 100% are. Some people are just better when there's situations like this of knowing what to do or understanding people's needs than others. And I think it's important to not get mad about that, and just understand how other people are going to have their levels of comfort, their skills, their understanding, just like you would in this situation. I think that helps.
Wow, that's really great insight that you have. So, I know you said that their family and friends have been a big part of your caregiving journey, but do you feel comfortable reaching out to them even when times are really hard?
Um, I'm not great at that, but I think in some situations I've had to become good on that. Just mostly, as I mentioned before, being down a driver, still having other children, them needing to get to places. I have a junior in high school who has sports, who has all things that he needs to get to. So a lot of what I have reached out to for people are rides or carpools or picking up groceries. That's been the area I've probably relied on family and friends the most.
Wow, that's great that you do have that support system, because it is so important to have a strong support system during times like these, and even being self-aware that you could be better about reaching out, but you do when you need to, and you have people around you that will take the time to help you out is really great. So, as caregivers take on more, emotions can really get complicated. So, let's talk about that part a little, if you don't mind.
Right.
So many caregivers sometimes feel grief or guilt as their lives changed. Have you felt anything like that?
I would say grief or fear in the beginning, because you're not sure if it's going to happen again, and everybody is probably guilty of googling things that maybe you shouldn't, and maybe trying to think of worst case scenarios. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that fear part of it, and we had a lot of certain plans that we were going to do, and Ron had a big golf weekend with his friends coming up, and he wasn't mobile, so wasn't able to go. And there's a lot of birthdays that we have that we weren't able to do things. So you kind of mourn some of those moments that you're not able to do. But there's definitely I think it's hard to not have some resentment because, could something have been avoided? Should you have had more insight on certain things? Could you have done things that wouldn't have put you in health risk? But it's just better to stay with your plan and keep moving things forward, or you can get locked into that, and it's a slippery slope for sure.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm saying that out loud takes a lot of courage, so thank you for sharing that. Do you have any specific coping mechanisms or people you reach out to or things that you like to do when those hard feelings come up?
I definitely believe strongly in prayer, some meditation. A lot of my day starts with what I am grateful for, and as I mentioned before, there's a lot of lows, but there's also a lot of highs. So celebrating those, whether it's a steady step or being able to chew a certain food for what you needed to do, or accomplish a exercise that the doctor has given you. I think just trying to focus on those type of things help.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate the little things, and taking into account what we are grateful for is super important, especially in hard times like these. So finally, I know we talked about it a little bit, but of course caregiving has a lot of moving parts embedded into it. Things like finances, transportation, and where you live, they all play a role. And I know we touched on this already, but is there one specific barrier that feels more pressing? I know you talked about transportation, and Ron not being able to drive has been difficult for you guys.
I would say that's a huge barrier. Right now, we're also very lucky that Ron's position at work, he receives quite a bit of sick time, so vacation time as well. So there's a definite risk that if he needs to extend past that, you have to go into short-term care, and that will definitely have impacts on our finances. But right now, we're hoping that he can use enough vacation and continue to get stronger so that he'll be able to work remote, which they've also worked out. So I cannot underestimate the value that his direct boss, and he works for the state of New Jersey, that they've been able to really facilitate making sure that it's structured the best way, that it's not impacting our finances. And for many people, that wouldn't have been able to be the case. I also work virtual, so I've had to stop a couple of my projects, but I've been able to keep most of my things going because I work virtual. So we've been lucky financially. A lot of the accommodations we needed in the house were also covered by insurance, the rehab center, the additional follow-ups. So transportation's probably the area we're spending the most money on, between Ubers and making sure our family gets where they need to be.
Wow, I know it's hard, but like you said, being grateful for the things that you do have, and you having that self-awareness that not everybody gets super lucky to have a flexible-ish, for the time being, schedule at their job. So like you said, just being grateful, I think that's great insight. That, and you said it too, like not everybody gets to have that. So again, knowing it's hard, but being grateful for the little things, I think that's really great, and it's something that you're really showing has been helpful for you.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, is there anything you wish other caregivers knew, or anything you wish people understood better about your experience?
I don't think so. I do think initially there's so many unknowns and uncertainty, and it's very disconcerting that somebody is not talking clearly or walking or has temperature. So, and the doctors and the nurses tell you, 60% chance it's going to get better. 60% does not sound great when you're in that situation, but it's just focusing on all the things that you can do, not those fears that are not easy, but does make a huge difference. And it's amazing what the brain can learn and relearn, and but it's scary in the meantime. Definitely asking for help, and being a partner with the services and the support that Ron was getting was huge as well, because I think they gave us a lot more attention because we were interested in asking those questions. We weren't resistant. We were really trying to partner with them. I think that helped as well too.
Wow, thank you so much for being so honest and open with me, Fiona. Your insight has been really powerful, and I know it's going to help a lot of people listening. So thank you so much for talking with me today and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
So now we're here with Ron Bell, Fiona's husband. Ron, thank you so much for joining me today. I know it can be hard to talk about everything that you've gone through, so I really appreciate your willingness to sit and talk with me today.
Thank you.
So let's start with your story. So Ron, could you start by telling me what life looked like before and after your stroke and what has changed since then?
I still work. I'm 64. Have a job with the state. 3 teenage kids who are very active, driving them around to stuff, and just the daily life of me and my wife keeping our family happy, safe, and secure.
So what has been the biggest change for you after your stroke?
I wasn't able to do any of that. I was in rehab, just finishing that up. I'm looking forward to go back to work, but I wasn't able to I haven't been to my job, I haven't been home, and my wife's been handling everything. It's very frustrating, and don't feel like I'm making my contributions that I should be doing.
Yeah, that's a pretty big life shift, and I'm sure it can be extremely hard to get used to your, like I said, quote unquote, new life. But if you don't mind sharing, what do you think has been the hardest part to adjust to?
I just don't think, and I've got neurologists and therapists that have, kind of hinted at this too. I just don't think I'm ever going to be the same person I was before, wherever I'm going to end up. I'm just going to have to fight like hell to get there, to go through a lot of therapies and adjust my mindset to wherever I'm at. That's going to be my new life.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very hopeful for progress, and you're very determined to make progress.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, both of those going together is so important, especially in recovery for something so significant like the type of stroke that you had. So what or who has helped you stay hopeful during all this?
Number one would be on the list would be my wife. She's been doing everything, including basically having a 4th child and taking care of me. Of course, the doctors and the therapists who have been very patient with me, very determined, just as eager to get me back on my feet as I am. And my children and my friends, they've all been very supportive, coming to visit me, keeping my spirits up, and making me confident that I'll get back to them.
Thanks for sharing that. I know it's hard to kind of reflect on life before and after, so I appreciate you being honest and open today. So now that we kind of understand your life before and your life now, let's just talk about your day-to-day and how the stroke has affected you. So how has the stroke really affected your body? We know things like balance, sensation, swallowing. How has that affected your everyday tasks?
Definitely, the swallowing definitely was the first thing I noticed, and the biggest problem that's since has come back. my balance still stinks. I get up, sit up, and stand up, and the world just it seems like I'm on a boat. Um, I get tired very easily, especially at the end of the day, and it's just movement is a struggle. Um, my walking is not balanced. My speech is the best way I can word it is that things that I think in my head when they come out of my mouth, there's a slight delay that maybe people don't notice, but I notice it. So, and it's all gotten a lot better. I'm hoping it continues to get better, but I'm also just kind of nervous about where it's going to end up and where I'm going to be once things settle down.
So you talked about how your swallowing has improved. Are there any other improvements that you noticed, even if they're small?
My balance is better. I used to, when I was walking down the hall, I would walk to the right, and within 10 feet, I'd be hitting the wall. I'm not doing that anymore. They now got me running a little bit. I'm hoping to eventually go back to driving. That's really important to me. I am going to have to take a driver's test, but the therapist and the neurologist seem to think I will do fine at that. I think I will do too, especially the way I'm progressing. But just and just my general overall fatigue. At the end of the day, I feel wiped out.
Yeah. That's great that you do have things that you're looking forward to. And even before I asked the question, you said your swallowing was getting better. So
Yes.
It's important, obviously, in things like these when so much is affected to even just focus on the small wins because they're still wins.
Yeah.
So how do you get through days when you feel frustrated with your body or when symptoms feel worse?
It's very frustrating. Don't get me wrong, it is. But I've always been determined, patient, just keeping my faith that as I see slow progress and the people give me encouragement that it is going to be a slow step, that everyone that's been talking to me about what can I expect so far, what they've been telling me as I'm seeing. So they haven't set my expectations too high. I haven't set my expectations too high. I'm really, frankness, probably don't really have any expectations right now. I just am doing right now I'm kind of giving my life into my family and my wife and my therapist and just doing what they tell me to do and hoping that when all is done and when I'm, a year or two from now, that I'm happy with who I am.
That's great. Determination and trusting the process and having people you feel like you can trust during this process is really important. And it's really great that you recognize that. We talked about a lot of physical impact, but emotionally, how has all of this impacted your mental health?
Definitely give me a sense of mortality. Where my future is, what my life's going to be like. Sorry. I want to get back to the person I was, but I have to be ready. That may not happen.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. You've gone through a lot, and it seems like those emotions are still super deep and super real. Do you have anybody to talk about those feelings
I
with?
spend a lot of time talking to my wife. I got, my friends. I don't really get that deep into it with them, but they provide me with a lot of encouragement and hope. But um, I don't know where this is going to end up. But there's just a lot of uncertainty right now, and I don't like uncertainty.
Yeah.
But the biggest inspiration and source of hope for me is my wife and my children.
That's really great to hear that you have people who, even if you don't necessarily get specific with how you're feeling, you can still feel love and support and feel better in your mental health and overall emotionally when you're around them. And I'm sure there are a lot of resources that either your rehab or hospital can give to you with talking to other people, because sometimes that can be helpful too. So a lot of people recovering from strokes or other life-changing events on their bodies talk about feeling like a burden. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit. So some people feel guilty when they need help. Even your wife mentioned that sometimes she doesn't feel super comfortable reaching out to people for help. So have you felt similar to that during your recovery?
Um, I I don't like to ask for help, but I understand in my current situation that I need help and people want to help me, which is very encouraging. Certainly understand that if I want help from them, that I have to reach out to them and ask them and kind of be specific about what happens. But I am very determined also too that as much as I want their help and as much as I need their help right now, I'm looking forward to not being as dependent on their help.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for being honest about that. And those feelings are really common, but also really heavy and can be hard to talk about or even just admit to yourself. So having that self-awareness is really great. So specifically, since we're talking about Fiona, since she's your main caregiver, has Fiona ever reassured you in a way that really stuck with you?
100% of the time, every day. More probably times than I really want to hear, but it's nice to have there, even if I don't always want to hear it and appreciate it. It's more very encouraging, but there's a lot of reality to it too, that I may not be in the right place in the right time or the right mindset to listen to it, but I know it, wherever it's coming from, it's always coming from a place of love. So I can't say enough good things about my wife. She really is getting me through this.
That's great. That's awesome that you talk so highly about Fiona, because it is such a stressful time sometimes. Either caregivers or care receivers can feel a little bit of a resentment. So just for our listeners, how does Fiona support you in the ways that feel helpful or respectful?
She constantly asks me questions about how I'm feeling. She, do I need a break? Can I get something to eat? Do I need help, getting somewhere? Driving. She's driving me around a lot. Like I said, I'm still not driving, so she's driving me everywhere. Always does it lovingly. Always does it patiently. Always going the extra mile for me. There are some days where she gives me a little kick in the ass to keep me motivated. Not always accepted or appreciated, but I do realize that I'm just not in a. I may have it clear in my mind about things that I want to do and things that I'm motivated to do. It's just my body's not cooperating right now, and I just need her to be the feet, the hands, the eyes, the ears, and the soul for me right now, because I tried to keep moving forward with it.
Wow, that's really awesome. It sounds like her support really truly makes a difference in how you move through each day.
Yes, it is.
So what helps you stay motivated in your rehab process and your daily routines?
Just putting a goal in my head and wanting to make it happen right now. My big goals, I got short-term goals. I want to be driving again. I want to get back to work. We just had an addition put on our house still adjusting to the new space. It's just new to me. I've never done it before, and the stroke's certainly not making it easy for me to get adjusted to it. But motivation, just same motivation. It's always been in my life. I've got something in front of me. I want to make it happen, and I'm just bound and determined to make it happen.
That's great that you have that self-awareness, and also, although it's very different, taking pieces from other situations in life and knowing what works best for you is super important. Are there any times where you do lose that motivation? And if you do, what kind of helps you come back to it?
The motivation is in my head. Body doesn't always match what my head is. At the end of the days, I get super tired, so sometimes I just want to sit down and just take a break, and I'll end up taking a nap. At the end of the day, just the physical strength and the physical endurance and what I was used to being able to do physically is just not there right now. And in all honesty, it may not ever be the same as it was before again.
Yeah.
So especially at the end of the day, especially, I have almost no energy left to have any kind of motivation.
Yeah. And like you said, like looking forward to things, like it just comes with time and progress. But what role does Fiona play in keeping you going?
She's my source of motivation too. I mean, she's taken it on like she does with everything that goes on with our family. She's taken this on as a challenge for her. I don't know how she finds the time, resources, energy, patience to do it all. There's no way I could, but she just gets it done, and just she is the rock for this entire family, but particularly right now for me.
Oh, that's really great. That's, like I said, sometimes caregivers and care receivers relationships can be very complex, and I'm sure that there have been times where it has been with you and Fiona, but you being so self-aware and appreciative of her support is honestly sometimes rare. So it's really great to hear that from you. Before we end, I just kind of want to shift towards what brings you joy or meaning into your days. So what things in your life right now help your day feel good or bring you joy throughout the day?
Noticing that I'm doing something that yesterday, the day before, a week ago, I couldn't do, or I couldn't do it all, and now maybe I can do it a little bit. There's things that I used to just do without thinking, and now I have to think about them. There's used to be stuff that I would think about doing that I really have to now focus on getting them done right, and there's stuff that I used to have to focus on that I just really struggle with now, and seeing progress and even if it's just a little progress, doing things that I couldn't do before that I can now do now, has been a constant source of motivation and joy for me my entire life.
Yeah. Is there anything specific that you would like to do more often?
I want to drive.
Yes.
I want to get back to work. I want to feel more of an equal contributor for the family. I want to get back into my daily routine. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to spend time outdoors. I don't want people to feel like I am a chore or a project or a resource, or have to take up too much of their resources on me. I want my life to get back to as close as I can, understanding that may not happen, as close to what I had before. And if it's not close, I will learn to be comfortable with wherever it gets to.
Yeah, being independent like you were before in your daily life, which you're doing all the steps to get to that, which is obviously, like we talked about, so important. But are there any changes right now, you think, either small or big, that would make daily life either a little bit easier or even just happier? Just, are there any things that you think you can do right now that would benefit your mental health and overall quality of life?
Getting up and moving around more. Certainly am grateful and ecstatic to be back home. And just doing everything I can to get back into my normal routine of life. Being around the same people that I'm used to, being around the same, doing the same activities I'm used to doing. I'm just looking forward to, and I know this sounds kind of silly and it's not a big motivator, but just looking forward and appreciating the things I used to do.
100%, yeah. You and Fiona both talk about gratitude a lot, which I think it's so important for both pairs of the caregiving partnership to have that. So, Ron, thank you so much for opening up today. Before we finish, is there anything you'd want someone else recovering from a stroke to hear?
Be patient, celebrate the little things, and it's never going to be the same. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, Ron. That's really going to help a lot of people who may be going through something similar. So thank you very much.
Sure. You're welcome. Thank you.
So during Ron's interview, I was also looking at the self-perceived burden scale to see if he mentioned or added up to any of the 10 items on the scale. And it seems like him and Fiona do have a great caregiver-care recipient dynamic. And it's not so much that he worries that he is a burden for her or any financial costs or Fiona overextending her role or going beyond capacity. It seems like they have a good mutual understanding of each other and what each other needs from each other. I think the only thing that would add up with Ron on the self-perceived burden scale is feeling guilty about the demands that Fiona is taking on, solely because he seems to be really missing his independence and wanting to get back into that and not having to be so reliant on Fiona or other people in his life for his basic care needs right now. So I just wanted to thank Fiona and Ron again for being here and for trusting me with their story. Their journey shows that recovery is not just about one person, but about a whole family or unit working as one. And as future OTs, I think it reminds us how important it is to support the caregiver just as much as the client, because the burden can be the same even if they're not experiencing that physical illness or deficit that the person that they're caring for is. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.